everybody. Welcome back. Thank you all for coming or joining us today in this podcast and returning. And those newcomers, thank you so much. Today's topic, we are going to discuss something that came up briefly in the last podcast, and that was sacrifice. And I will tell you this, as you guys know, there's so much of this podcast is divinely guided, and all my topics pretty much come from them above. And I will start to notice uh, topics that will begin to repeat themselves over and over between podcasts, and that's how I'll develop the topic typically. This one, though, is no different. Sacrifice, I am beginning to learn, is a huge component of ascending. And ascension or ascending, enlightenment is the end result of the ascension process. And that's what it is. It's a process. And everybody's ascension process is pretty different. However, they do entail a number of topics or similarities in the sense that we all have to sacrifice. We all have to be the best version of ourselves. We all have to learn lessons. We all have to heal. We all have to forgive, etc. You guys get where I'm going there. But sacrifice, I am beginning to realize, is another huge component of all this that we must begin to do. I channeled a message the other day, and actually God was telling me that he gave me an analogy for sacrifice and how it is. And he said, with sacrifice, the soul, let me see, I wrote it down here. Your soul becomes lighter and thus can raise higher. And that was so profound, I thought. And that is one of the many times throughout the past, time between this podcast and the last, that I started to realize how important sacrifice is. So let's dive into a little bit more. The last podcast, we talked a lot about the ego and what its purpose is, what governs it. And we discussed how it basically is for self-preservation. Well, part of our sacrifice is to let go of the ego and sacrifice that self-preservation. Some examples, I will say, of individuals who sacrificed so much. And I will tell you this, when you sacrifice, you want to have an intention. Why are you sacrificing? What is it that you are sacrificing? And that always goes back to the triangle as well. The thought, the feeling, which is the thought is the intention, the speech, and then the action. The action is the sacrifice itself. And when you are beginning to do something in the name of God, or in the name of not even necessarily God, but in the name of your own love and being the best version of yourself, when you do something, when you sacrifice something with that intention, the amplification of energy is tremendous. As you look through previous religions, or not previous religions, but religions that are out there, Catholics, Christians have Lent. Native Americans used to fast at different locations to help strengthen their connection from spirit. That was something. I went to Sweetgrass Hills in Montana one time, and Indian tribal leaders who were looking for spiritual guidance would fast before they went to this hill, the Sweetgrass Hills, and then stay on the hill until they got the message that the answer to what they were looking for. Muslims sometimes will, or not sometimes, but will fast during Ramadan. Buddha himself sacrificed, he ate a grain of rice a day. I want to say it was for 20 something days. But then he obviously learned how to balance. So um, Hinduism, it sacrifices some personal beliefs and has some customs that are optional, but obviously do help. Some fast for certain days, depending on their favorite deity within the Hindu faith, and then the Jewish religion has Yom Kippur, in which Jewish people will fast for some time. Now, the fasting, we also know for spiritual people, we know that the crown chakra is strengthened with the intention and fasting. So the sacrifice of food with the intention of strengthening a connection is huge. And when I say fast for food, because that is one that is very big, you don't have to do it. I mean, there are people that do it for days, all week, but you don't necessarily have to. You can do intermittent fasting, but obviously it is the intention behind it. If you're intermittent fasting for losing weight, that's a different intention than intermittent fasting for your connection to the universe, universal energy, God, creator, whatever it is you want to call it. And that's a huge distinction, very important. Now, what I will say is the crown chakra is your connection to the oneness, universal energy, as I already said, God, creator, but it's that within you. Now, a lot of people will leave the crown chakra as your connection to the universe, and that's fine. That's all good. But I also like to recognize the God within ourselves, because we all share DNA with the creator. We all share that. We all share energy from the creator, from the universe, and recognizing that through the crown chakra, in my opinion, is an aspect of the crown chakra that we could remember. So, and many of you guys know, not that I'm any kind of Bible talker, but the Old Testament was also, they used to sacrifice animals. Now, when I say sacrifice, it is all about you, what you do for yourself, your personal sacrifice. It is nothing else. There's no sacrifice when, that we do to another person is what we're referring to. Like they used to sacrifice animals. That's not what this is about. This is about what you sacrifice. What are the things that you are doing within your life? Inventory your life, introspect your life. What is it that you're doing that you can now sacrifice for the highest and greatest good of yourself and for God, creator, and the oneness, basically. We talked about the 12 dimensions and how each dimension carries with it a new perspective. Well, the 12th dimension, the highest one, is an understanding that we are all one. And that is the crown chakra as well. When you begin to dive into that, you begin to understand that, and you see yourself, even if it's a slimmer piece of another person, you see it. You see you in them. We are all a reflection of each other. And that's why I always say there is no right or wrong. You are me, I am you, we are one. It's just we different levels of that oneness, So moving on, sacrifice is huge. And when you do sacrifice with an intention of strengthening your spiritual connection to the divine, there is a lot of energy there. And I will tell you this, I sacrifice, I will fast for hours before every session that I do. And I do that for the intention of strengthening my connection. So I'm doing that. For instance, if I have a session maybe at 4 o'clock, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll have breakfast, and I might have a very small snack around noon, and then I won't eat again until after my session. And that is intentionally so I can deepen or strengthen the connection that I have. And it has been very effective. Now I know others will say, and I'm not saying that my way is the right way. What I'm saying is it just helps. But you could do whatever you want, whatever works for you. Any sacrifice that you do is helpful. Why do we sacrifice though? We sacrifice because ultimately we are all souls who are looking to enlighten. And what God said to through me channeling uh just a week or so ago was that as you sacrifice, you let go. You're beginning to lighten your own soul and its attachment to things. And thus, as it lightens, it rises. Some of the other things that I will sacrifice, I will only have one caffeinated drink a day. So what I started to realize was that the as I drink caffeinated drinks, my body becomes dehydrated and I lose that water in me. And water is an element in which the divine connect to very well. It's breath and then water are the number twos. Or I'm sorry, are the top two. And then you have fire and ground. But it's in that order. Breath is number one. So obviously breathing, and we do that in meditation. But water is number two, and our bodies are made of water. So our bodies are a vessel in which the heavenly realm will use to connect with us. And if we are not in a suitable state for that connection, it just becomes that much more difficult. Not saying it's impossible, just more difficult. So as a result, I drink about 2 liters of water a day for the intention of strengthening my connection, making sure I'm always hydrated. And I will fast before a session, but drink water so that that connection is strong. I also have, for all intents and purposes, have stopped eating red meat. I will eat red meat once a year. So no hamburgers, no steaks, none of that. I got rid of all of it. I will eat chicken and I will eat pork, but no red meat, ground meat, steaks, anything like that. Except once a year. I do that also for the intention of cleansing my body and being as pure as I can. There's still so much more that I could do. I will also obviously intermittent fast, and I will do that even on some days that I don't have a session. I will also go through that process just simply to cleanse, and again, for the intention, or with the intention of developing my connection, strengthening it. But where it gets very interesting is there's so much to sacrifice and what it is you're willing to get up. And one of the most difficult parts of sacrifice is when you are beginning to get into the ego mind. Because again, the ego mind is all about self-preservation. So it has wants, it has desires, but what we have to understand is that your soul, does not necessarily need these things or desires that the ego mind does want. We don't need that. And when we get into the ego mind and all of its thought processes and all of its things that it uses to hold you down, which is a part of what the ego mind is. It's all about self-preservation and it's all about you, when in reality it's not. I mean, yes, sacrifice is all about you for sure, and it is about your soul is all about the actions that you do to help raise your vibration. But the ego mind doesn't necessarily care about raising. It only cares about you in a selfish way. And that's the distinction between the two. When it's about you and you're coming from a higher perspective, you understand other people, you understand that love is essential. The ego mind doesn't care about that. It wants what it wants, and it goes after it regardless of who is hurt in the middle of it or because of it. So there are different facets of sacrifice that you can, when you're talking about the ego, that you can begin to sacrifice. Like, it doesn't have to be just food, or it doesn't have to be just caffeine. It could, a sacrifice. Here you go. Time. Here's another one. Time. You sacrifice time. And what I mean here is, I will sacrifice time every day to meditate. Huge. I meditate just about almost every day, whether it's for a few minutes or an hour, a half hour, 15 minutes, doesn't matter. I am willing to sacrifice my time to strengthen my connection with above. So these are all the different things that I will do for the highest and greatest good of my own soul. But it even gets deeper. So if you are emotionally healing, every facet of your life, you can sacrifice something for or to establish or strengthen your connection with the divine, or with the heavenly realm. So say that you are healing, like emotionally healing. As you heal, what are you willing to sacrifice your anger or your vengeance, your resentment? Are you willing to sacrifice these aspects? Say somebody hurt you and you feel anger and rage toward that. Are you willing to sacrifice that rage for forgiveness? Are you willing to sacrifice revenge for love and acceptance? Remember, nothing happens to us by accident. There is a reason for everything, and we're meant to grow as a result of everything. Here's another one that's huge. So whatever you are going through, what are you willing to let go of, to sacrifice for the highest and greatest good of yourself, of your soul, and for your connection to the heavenly realm? What are you willing to give up? Because attachments to people, attachments to things, attachment to emotional states of mind are we're holding on to and not helping us. So we want to be able to let go of everything. And I mean people too. But here's another one too that I feel like is such a big one. And that is, are you willing to sacrifice your desire to be right? I'll give you a huge an example here that I find to be very, very big. I was at a funeral before for my cousin. She passed away, and a couple years ago. In the funeral, she was a Christian. In the funeral, there was a priest that she wanted to do the sermon. While he was on there, he knew that I was a medium. He knew that I meditated all the time. He knew this. And she would talk to him about me a lot, because she would always say, my cousin, is a, he speaks to people that have passed. He speaks to God and all that. And he continuously ridiculed me without me being there. But then during the funeral, he talked about me, and in front of the entire church, and was saying, who would you want to listen to? Someone that goes, or somebody like me. And he was talking about himself, someone who prays to God all the time and reads the Bible and does all these things. I'm sitting there like, I cannot believe this guy's doing this. Then he comes back and he's saying how not good meditating is, and how people like me are not good people. And I was like, I can't believe I'm at my cousin's funeral and this guy is saying this kind of stuff. But hear me out. Am I willing to sacrifice my being right for my connection to the heavenly realm? And my answer to that is yes, I am. So after the funeral, we were at the luncheon and he was there. So I took a moment to walk up to him and ask him about why he felt the need to insult me at my cousin's funeral, because I know that she would never do that. So he proceeded to ask me a series of questions that were like, do you believe in the God? Like, do you believe in Jesus Christ? Yeah. Do you believe Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior? Yeah, I do. Do you believe a few other things? And then he goes, do you believe in the Bible? And I was like, well, some of it. And he's like, well, there you go. You're talking to the guy down there. Dude, it doesn't matter if I said yes to that or not. You would have found something else until we just disagreed. However, I continued to talk to him and I just very politely said to him, I just don't understand the need to insult me. You knew I was going to be here. You knew this was my cousin and you took this opportunity to insult me. And I said, what's funny is you're not wrong. And he looked at me like, what? And I turned to him and I said, but neither am I. Because I wasn't sitting there. Now, look, I am not anything special, guys. And that's not my purpose here. Please forgive me. I'm not here to like toot my own horn. No, I'm just giving you guys examples, firsthand examples of some of these things that I've been through that you might be able to relate to. So please bear with me. And I apologize for the firsthand experiences. I don't mean to be like that, but I wasn't trying to argue with him who's right and who's wrong. I don't even care that he thinks what he thinks as far as his belief system. I know on a soul's level, your soul is using that to propel you higher. And honestly, I'm happy about that. I didn't understand why you needed to insult someone in order to do that. But either way, your belief system is right. But so is mine. And I was willing to, in this situation, forego my own argumentative way for being right. I let it go. I didn't care about it. But I did want to ask him, clarifying questions to get better understandings of why he did what he did. Come to find out, I will tell you a little conclusion here, though. This is the pastor to my brother's church. You gotta love him. And I was talking to my brother one time recently, and he comes to me, and I actually was writing a paper in school, and I wanted to talk to him about his church and why they think meditation is so bad. So when I call him up, my brother, I asked him that question. Why do you guys, your pastor, I know, thinks meditation is not a good thing, as he very eloquently said in my cousin's funeral. So, I want to see if I can interview you about that. He goes, what? I don't think meditation is bad. And I was like, well, your pastor said that. And he goes, no. We meditate. We meditate now. I'm like, wait a second. So everything shifted. You guys all meditated. Oh yeah. We meditated. And it just cracked me up. Like, okay. So I was happy to see the growth, but really they're just using it as, they're just changing the wording for prayer, basically is what they are doing there. But anyway, I thought it was funny that, that all shifted. So now he meditates, quote unquote. So anyway, what are you, but the thing is, it's about being, you can sacrifice that aspect of being right for the highest and greatest good of yourself, because arguing with somebody is most of the time unnecessary. If you're not having polite conversations with people, and if you're just arguing for the sake of arguing for who is right, that's sacrifice that. Let it go. Let it go. Unnecessary. Find your peace. Know in your heart what you do is right and what they do is right, because that's what their soul chose to do. there, and that's what we said earlier in the beginning of us. We stated that very intentionally, that each path is its own process. Ascension path, each ascension path is its own process. And some people, some souls are very slow. I know I've talked about this before. Some are very quick. Some are medium, where they want to experience. Some are slow, so they want to experience every aspect of a low vibration, so that they know, hey, when I get to here, I'm good. I know every aspect of this. I can help people in every facet. Some some souls want to experience situations more like medium ground, like, okay, I'll experience some, maybe not all, maybe for a shorter period of time, but at least I have an idea of it, I can help. And then some are like, no, in and out, I want to experience it and then I'm moving on. But there is no right or wrong, and that's why we sacrifice the anger, we sacrifice the vengeance, we sacrifice resentment, we sacrifice being right for our own peace, for our own healing. And that's why it's in the healing element here. We must begin to let go of different facets of who we think we are, and the differences between us, and yet focus on the loving aspects that connect us. Find that connection. Find what brings us together. So change that focus and find that loving connection between us all, so that we can all grow. Now, go towards acceptance, forgiveness, love of self, love of others, and balance. That's ultimately what we're looking for. So when you sacrifice something like an emotional state, that's what we're looking for. The emotional states that we want more of are acceptance, forgiveness, love of self, love of others, and a balance between so many different aspects of ourself: male, female, higher, lower, good balance. Now, there are other things that we can sacrifice too. And, as we said in the beginning, the ego has wants, it has desires, it has things. Like when we work and we want to get things that we can use for whatever. Like, you want to buy clothes because you want to look good. You want to buy a big house because what is the intention behind it? But you want to buy a big house so that you feel like you're successful. You want to buy a nice car, so you want to feel successful, and you want people to know that you are successful. And I say successful with quotes, because what is success? Are we sacrificing our own happiness for the approval of other people? Do we want to drive sports cars or big trucks because we want other people to know that we make a lot of money, or have a large house, or have multiple cars, or whatever it is, simply because we feel like we need to live a certain way so that people will approve of us? This is a huge part here where we can begin to sacrifice. And again, I don't mean to use stories of myself, but sacrifice. When I quit in IT, I did IT for 20 years. When I quit IT, I had no job lined up. I was thinking that I could try to start a meditation mindfulness business for kids and adults and corporations and stuff. But I was making nothing, and I quit, and I was the primary breadwinner of the house. But when you sacrifice for your highest and greatest good, because what I wanted to do was help people. I wanted to, and I knew they were telling me to go. I could feel it in me. Everything was in alignment, and I was like, all right, I feel it. They're telling me I should go. And I did. I made the jump. I sacrificed my quote unquote wealth, how much money I was making, for nothing, for no money. And ultimately, it led to where I'm at right now, which is a teacher. However, it was that initial sacrifice that I was doing for them that helped me so much, because what it did was, like, please understand that when we sacrifice money for them, they will help you get what you really do need. So, I don't make nearly as much as I used to. I'm still far below. But what I am beginning to see is that that sacrifice has allowed them that connection within me to show me that they're going to help me. And I'll give you, for instance, here. I went to the store the other day and the guy I wanted I come up with this had like $32 worth of items. And the guy goes, "Oh, I see your account has $32 or $34 credit on it." And I was like, he goes, "Did you, buy a large item from us recently?" And I did say, maybe a year or two ago I bought something, but that was a year or two. I think it was 2 years. So I was like completely baffled as to how this credit was on there. And he goes, "Oh, well, you got it. And here it is." So I literally went into this store, and I knew this day was a little bit of a struggle for us, but he gave me that and it was free. I got it completely free. Um, I told you guys about my trip to Montana and how the car would not fall off this tow dolly. And they kept telling me, "You're going to be okay. The car's going to be okay. You got to trust us." And I sacrificed my own ego there of, oh my God, I need to self-preserve. I need to preserve my car, because if I lose it, that's a lot of money. And I trusted them. So I sacrificed my doubt, and trusted in what they said and kept my car, and the car was good. It, always stayed on this two-wheel dolly. Those that have heard the story before, two front tires on the dolly, and then the straps came off. There was nothing holding it on to the dolly, and it would not come off on the highway. Like, we hit a bump and it just popped right back on. Like, that should not have happened. So what are you willing to sacrifice for the highest and greatest good of yourself, your soul, and to lighten it? Control is another one, an emotional state. Are you willing to give up control? Some of us have this deep need to control things. It's kind of like in line with being right. There is not, stop the control. We are not here to control others. And we are not here to say that, yo, you should do this that way. As we said in the beginning, so important. Each path is different. Each process is different. We go about them in different ways, and we must be accepting of all people in what they're doing, understanding that ultimately God is the one that will allow things to happen or not happen. Death does not happen without God's presence. We must know that. We must accept this and know that no matter what happens here in this school, because this realm, this physical life is a school. No matter what happens, we are here for a reason. And the reason is to sacrifice some of these ego perspectives and to really just be accepting of what is. And I'll give you for instance here. I'm not the biggest fan of using Jesus as an example, because he's obviously such a powerful one. But when he was walking himself to the crucifixion, he wasn't telling everyone, you must believe in, like, he didn't try to change what was happening to him. He knew it was going to happen. He told Judas, I know what you did. And he didn't condemn him. He didn't condemn the people that crucified him. He forgave them all. He is the example of how important sacrifice is. Sacrifice and living in a state of acceptance, forgiveness, self-love, love of others, and balance. Like, he epitomizes what we aspire to be as a soul. Whereas, and Buddha shows us how to get there through the balance, through the meditations, through the sacrifices. So, what are you willing to give up on an emotional state, on a physical state, an ego's perspective? What are you willing to give up in order to rise above, to lighten your soul and allow your soul to grow to what it is meant to be? Sacrifice is so huge, so huge. Another thing is, I will not drink alcohol within 24 hours of a session. And there are some mediums that I know who will do all of that. And they're like, no, it's okay. But that is okay. They're right in their perspective and their process. That is right for them. Eventually, we're going to get to the point, your soul will get to the point where we will give up even more. Priests, Catholic priests, Christians, and stuff like that, their sacrifice of like intimacy, physical intimacy, that's huge. That's a big one. Obviously, there are some issues in the Catholic Church. Yes, understood. What I'm saying, though, is the power behind the ones that actually do abide by that is astronomically huge. What can we give up in the physical realm through our states of being, like our healing, our physical wants, desires? What can we give up there? Food, material things. What are you willing to give up in every aspect? And then the emotional states, all of them are huge, big, very big. And when you combine that with these actions that you are doing to help, like meditation, I sacrifice time for meditation. That's what I mean there. I sacrifice time for meditation. When I combine those types of things, I sacrifice the food and the drink for drink alcohol, for my sessions and for my clients that come in. It's tremendously powerful. But are you willing to sacrifice your vengeance, your anger, your resentment, your being right, money, even in some instances? Like, are you willing to live in a somewhat of a poor home so that you can be your highest and greatest self? I'm going to give you a couple examples of other people who are some of the most powerful people of the last century that have sacrificed so much to strengthen their connection with the heavenly realm. First is Padre Pio, an amazing monk back in, I want to say, the early 1900s. I want to say in Italy. He was a monk. He dealt with such pain. Like his health was very, very poor. But and at a young age, I think he was, I was reading about his history, and it was at an early age, like 8 to 12 years old, he realized his life's purpose was to be somebody that devotes their life to God. He knew early. And that's a soul that has been here a billion times, man. That's Padre Pio is an amazing individual. If you ever get some time and you read up a little bit about him, he sacrificed so much. He gave up everything for God. And all he wanted to do was help people. He held confessions every day, no matter what kind of pain he was in. He prayed. He had prayer groups that were just incredible. He gave up, like, talk about sacrificing time. Every moment of his life was, like, from 8 to 12 years old on, was so much was dedicated to God. He sacrificed so much. I'll give you another one who obviously is much older, but Mother Mary sacrificed again, like Padre Pio, so much of her life. Every time God needed something, wanted something from her, there was without hesitation. She gave up her entire ego self. Padre Pio gave up his ego self to be the highest and greatest good person that they could possibly be, which is why, they were chosen to do what they did. Amazing people. Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa used to feed the poor in, I think it's like South America somewhere. It might have been Colombia, I think, but sacrificed. It wasn't, nothing was about Mother Teresa. It was about her and how she can sacrifice for the highest and greatest good of other people, the poor people in her neighborhoods. And I will tell you what, Mother Teresa, the home that she worked in that was of service to other people is still in service today. And Mother Teresa is obviously is a huge representation of this home. I think it's for poor moms and poor children, but they still are there. These women are there every day helping people. That's tremendous sacrifice. It Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King essentially gave up his life for the highest and greatest good of individuals. He sacrificed anger, vengeance. He sacrificed all of that because he understood the power of love and peace. He wrote a book, The Power of Love. It's an amazing book. I encourage you all to read it, but he is someone that understood we don't respond in anger. We sacrifice it. We let it go and we respond in peace and love. And that is going to be our weapon. He is so right. Even today, my friends, even today, sacrifice your anger. Find peace and love and be that highest and greatest version of yourself. That is what this is all about. That is why we are talking about sacrifice. What are you willing to let go of to be that highest and greatest good of yourself so that universal energy can flow through you, because that is the most powerful. And I thought there was another. I could be wrong. I will tell you, though, I'm reading a book right now about John F. Kennedy, JFK. And I'll tell you what, when that man was going through what he went through, he sacrificed so much of his ego. Now, granted, he was a playboy. I get it. He did, I get it. He wasn't, he sacrificed his ego in certain aspects, not all, but certain. And we should be very grateful that he did, because there were many people in our government who were trying to push JFK to go to war, and that is nuclear war, for the purpose of self perseverance, or self like the ego. I'm sorry, I'm having a brain freeze there. But he did not listen to that. He understood that it is through peace and love and understanding that we can still attain peace. Like, peace doesn't have to be attained through fighting, which is what a lot of people in governments around the world think, that we can only attain peace through fights, through fighting, through wars. JFK understood something very differently, and that is that we can attain peace through other means. And it is because of his resistance to war that he was able to save humanity, really, because if we went into a nuclear war with Russia, we would have been annihilated. But it was through his understanding of the power of peace and love that we can ultimately find a common ground that we can all live in. And his story is very amazing. And I'm reading his book now, but you learn a lot about how powerful the influence was over him, like coming from the government, people within the government that kept fighting for him to go to war. and his resistance to that, how he found his faith in God and knew that ultimately, if we went to war, it would create probably human annihilation. And obviously that's not a good thing, even though there were people around him that wanted it. So what can you sacrifice is the question here. What can you give up for your highest and greatest good to be that love, that acceptance, forgiveness, love of self, love of others, to find that balance so that we can be our higher selves and do it in the name of God, of universal energy, of love, even. I mean, if you don't want to say God, fine. But what can you give up? What can you sacrifice? And you don't have to do everything at one time, but what can you sacrifice both consciously, like emotional states, conscious states within yourself, and physical items? What can you give up within the ego? And when I tell you, when you begin to do that, again, with the intention of being your highest and greatest self and connecting to the heavenly realm, when you do it with that intention, that's where the power comes in. You can't just say, I'm going to give up food because I want to lose weight. That we've said that already. It's not, the intention is different. The energy is different. The frequency is not as strong. If I want to give up money, because maybe I feel like I have too much of it, I don't know, whatever it is. If I refuse to give up the idea of being right because you are, then we're just not being in that, we're not sacrificing. And there's so much that we can sacrifice. So anyway, with that, we are done, my friends. I will go ahead and channel, and then we'll conclude the whole thing. But I'm done with my little spiel. And thank you so much for listening to me. I am very grateful as always, guys. I am very grateful for all of you. Thank you. Grateful we are, my son, Christopher, and to all of you listening today, Enoch speaking. It is the sacrifice of the heart that so many of you are longing to give. Sacrifice within the heart. What is your ego mind holding on to that holds you back from love? That is what we are referring to. What clouds your heart space? So much of the ego mind does come forth with the intent of clouding your heart space. And what we say is shine your love on those clouds to dissipate them, and thus find the love within yourself that you can exude onto others. Ultimately, that is what we are doing. It is through sacrifice, though, that so much intention is received from the heavenly realm and thus allows us to work through you. And we are grateful for those moments of time. Each moment in time that we are able to work or navigate through you is a helping hand to your soul. It allows for your own soul to begin to understand how to balance energies, how to allow your soul to move the energy of your physical. And we are grateful for that. Your soul is looking to guide your physical, but it does this through sacrifice, through becoming the highest and greatest good of yourself always. We ask you to be very patient with yourself, though, as you navigate these worlds, this realm. It is important to find patience and peace within yourself as you yourself begin to learn how to sacrifice at different moments of time. It is not something to be very judgmental of yourself, but we say sacrifice the judgment for the highest and greatest good of yourself. Find peace in knowing and loving who you are right now. Be proud of who you are, not in a boastful way, but in a very subdued way. Be proud of who you are and the efforts that you put forth into the loving, highest and greatest good of yourself. And we are grateful for this. Find peace in your being, in the love that you are currently. But know that with each step that we take, each action that you make that is in alignment with your highest and greatest good, this is how your timelines are managed. Each decision that we make in alignment with our highest and greatest good can move you along the time frame, the timeline. What we tell you here is very important to understand, that time is kept by your actions, and your actions are very important. Every action that you make that is tailored to another, that extends further on your time frame, allows you to move along the timeline of your soul. So guys, please forgive me. I am literally seeing a timeline, and every action that you make, I see you move along your timeline, but they must be tethered together. It cannot be one good action versus another not good action. It must be good action, good action, good action. And yes, should we have an action that is maybe not so good, this is understandable and to be expected. But when we begin to put a series of actions on top of each other that are all meant for the highest and greatest good of yourself, you will begin to move on the timeline. And what we do ask is that you begin to stockpile these actions as much as we can, as frequently as we can, to put them in a state at which you are helping others, that you are of service to others, that you are loving and forgiving not only individuals that may have hurt you, but loving and forgiving yourself. It is essential. You are all beautiful beings that are here to serve a purpose for, yes, not only your own soul's growth, but for others as well. It is your healing that others can begin to hold on to and heal as well. This healing power is tremendously powerful for every soul, not just your own. And when you embark on a healing journey, other souls that bear witness to it, not in a physical sense, but on a spiritual level, can see it and thus use it. And for that, we are very grateful. We do ask you to sacrifice as you proceed along this journey. But as we also said, it must be felt always. You must feel the desire and want to sacrifice for the true intention purposes of aligning with your Creator, God, our Father. And we are grateful always. Go in great peace, my children. And we say to you now, thank you. Be of peace always. Thank you. Thank you, Enoch. All right, guys. Thank you all so much. I am so grateful. I will see you on the next podcast. Hopefully, you guys are getting something from this. And as always, please don't ever hesitate to reach out and let me know if there's something that you want me to talk about. I also ask, and I've never asked this before, but if you wouldn't mind giving a like and a subscribe to our channel, whatever you're listening on, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Rumble, I would ask that, and I would be grateful for it. Thank you all so much. Take care. Have a great day. Love you all.